Yeah. So as
So
you were
yeah, like I
saying,
was
Live.
telling you, Rigo, uh, yeah, man, it's great that you have your parents. You know, both of your parents. I know you guys have gone through something with your mom, but like, yeah, that's something that I always tell all my friends, family too. Freud hears it all the time from me. You know, have communication, great communication with your parents. Talk to your parents, talk to your mom, talk to your dad every single day. You know, because it's something like it's really true when they tell you you don't know what you have until it's gone, right?
Oh yeah, yeah, for sure,
And
for
it's
sure.
and one thing it's a breakup with your significant other or whatever it is, but another thing is like when they're really, really, really gone, and
Right,
it's like you
right.
can't call them anymore. You can't, I remember I got so new to you. I lost both of my parents pretty much recently, about 3 years ago, both of them back to back. So it's uh it's been something that I've been struggling to get not used to it, but living with it, right? Living with the fact that
Hmm.
I can't get the phone and call them,
Right,
or
right,
like
right.
how my sister and I and my brother we trained our parents finally to learn how to text, right? Send pictures and all that, and they can't send a picture anymore. Or we can't send them a picture of whatever my kids or my nephews awards they have won throughout the these past couple of years. So it's one of those things that I'm always telling my friends,
Right,
have that communication with your parents. Have
right,
that communication. Do live your life to however you want to live it, but communicate with your parents. Have that, like you were saying earlier. Your siblings and yourself. You guys get along great with your parents, right?
right.
We hear so many stories of how there's people that don't. There's people that don't talk to their parents because of whatever reasons, stupid reasons to me, right?
yeah.
Right, right,
And again, it's one of those things that you don't miss until you don't have it, right?
right.
And it's unfortunately it's one of those things that we have to talk about, right? As parents,
Hmm.
as papas, it's one of those things that maybe our parents didn't talk to us and they didn't know how to do it, right? But we've always
Right,
had that question of damn, what if they do go, or what if you do go, or mom goes, or I go? What's gonna happen?
right,
You know?
right. Yeah, we typically like with my parents, right? My dad and my mom, ever since she had the stroke, and to see her laying there in the bed, like not able to we didn't know what was gonna happen, right? Because that was the unknown at
Yeah,
the
of
time.
course.
She's laying in the bed, can't move anything, can't talk, can't communicate, can't say a word. Her when she did start to kind of regain her speech, where she couldn't really put a sentence together, like you could see the frustration in her head, and then it's nice because the doctors explain to you, right, like the brain, those neural paths have been like destroyed, so now the brain's like trying to figure out how to get what it needs to say out, but it needs to find a new path. It's like, and a good example they would use is like her brain knows to use the front door to leave the house, but that front door is
Right.
sealed right now. So the only way out is now to go through the garage, open the side door, and then open the gate and come out. But her brain doesn't know that that's how to say some stuff.
How
And
to
it was
do it, yeah.
crazy to see her eyes would be like you could read her
Telling
eyes
you.
like telling you something, and then she's just frustrated. She can't get it out. Now it's gotten better where she can talk. But I told my mom when she was on that bed, I said, "Hey, like you guys are older. You're older. They're in their 70s, but they're still very capable. They walk. They still they live in a 2 story or like a three almost 3 story type home." But they climb a lot of stairs, and that's like a lot of friends of mine say that's the fountain of youth, right? Having a multi level home because it keeps them active without them knowing how active they are.
Yep. Without
But
steps.
they're very healthy in that sense. And I tell my mom and dad like this is my perspective on life with like when like getting older, and this is kind of how I want to live my life, where I want to get to a point where I can help my kids the way they can help us, but I also want to be those parents that get away. Like I want to take off. Like I tell my dad all the time, like you should be able to jump on a go jump on a carnival cruise and leave for 6 months. And he's like, what? Like how could I leave for 6 months? I was like, there's 8 of us. We'll figure your stuff out for you. Like if someone needs something here, we'll take care of it. what the way I put it is like this. You gave like a perfect example, right? Like you wish you could pick up the phone and talk to your parents, but you can't, right? Because that's just not possible. My
Right.
girlfriend gets mad all the time because she always says, "Did you miss me?" I was like, "I don't miss you because I know you're here. I miss people that I can't like. I like that's it. They're gone, right? Like in your case, that's true miss. You can't talk to them, but like if they're around, when they're around, you don't miss them because you're like, oh, they're here. But when they're
Yeah.
gone, you miss them. So she always gets
Exactly.
bad. She's like, "That sucks. Why don't you miss me?" I was like, "Bro, because you're still here. So that's good, right?" But my parents, I tell them, take off because here's the way I see it. When you guys pass, there's nothing you can do for us, right? And I say, wouldn't you guys rather like
Not only
leave?
can they not do anything for you, but they're not gonna take anything.
Right, they're not. They're not going to take anything with them, right? And so I tell my dad, like, wouldn't you guys rather have it where like you guys can leave, right? Like leave, not really leave, like leave the earth, just leave, and then check in on us. I almost call it like you guys dropping in from heaven, but you're not really gone, but you can almost
Yeah.
be like you're gone, but then check in like if you guys like if we actually got a call from heaven. Hey, how's everything going? How's everybody? How are you guys doing? Are you guys fighting? Is the family getting along together? And then still meddle with the family, right? Like still be involved to the point where they can be like, hey, you guys shouldn't be fighting, or hey, let's like, can we settle this? Or hey, there's some financials that need help with, and then settle everything. So this way, the day that it does really happen, they can leave as peacefully as possible, like knowing
So
that
that's
everything's
one
set in
of the
stone.
that's one right. You and I love where you're going because this is one of the things that my sister and I talk about. Even though I do struggle with it, and I struggled a lot with it. I also have learned a lot from it because my parents, even though they didn't have a lot and they didn't leave a lot, they lived a lot.
Mm,
Meaning, they did take those vacations. They did leave. They would leave. You know, for weeks, 1 2 months apart. Away. And there was even maybe a year or two before they passed. Literally, I would call my mom in the morning, and I would see you get the normal ringtone. Buenos días, blah blah blah. Oh, buenos días, mijo, cómo estás? Blah blah blah. This and that. Okay, mom, I'll call you later when I go on break, or I'll call you later when I'm driving home from work or whatever it is. Okay, mijo, está bien. I would call him later on in the evening, and I would hear that fucking international ring, bro.
that long tone,
What
right?
the hell? Hello, mom. ¿Dónde andas? ¿Qué crees? ¿Qué pasó? Where you at? Estamos acá en el aeropuerto. What the hell? What are you doing? Why did you tell us? She's like, for what? What are you
Right,
gonna do? Are you gonna tell me not to go?
right,
You know?
right,
Are you gonna hit me? Are you my dad? Así me decía, ¿eres mi papá?
right,
No, but I mean, shit.
Avisen.
right, right,
Avisa. No, ¿para qué? ¿Me vas a pagar el vuelo? Well, I
mm,
could give you some money. Está bien, mijo. It's okay. Don't worry about it.
right,
Yo te hablo cuando lleguemos allá. All right.
right,
And then I become the parent.
right,
Mom, why haven't you called me? For what? We're okay. I'll call you back later. We're having dinner.
right,
You know? She's telling me to stop bugging.
right.
That's
How
kind of how it happens sometimes, man.
how about you, Froy? I feel like
It happened
you
quite
and Chris are
often,
doing all
bro.
the talking.
It happened quite often where we had to get used to them not being around, right? Not that we weren't able to call them, but it was just we got used to uh yeah, not having them around,
Right,
but we knew that they were okay, they were safe, and they were having fun.
right,
3 weeks later, I would call them again, and I would hear the normal ringtone again.
They're back.
¿Ya llegaron? Oh, sí, ya llegamos ayer. No, anoche. Oh, okay. Oh, shit. Fuck, man. Why don't you try calling? You have a cell phone. You know? For what? We're okay. When you don't hear from us, then we'll start worrying about us.
Yeah.
mm,
And
So,
see, for me, this whole topic of uh missing your parents, or sending them away, like it's it I my dad and my mom, they have a house in Mexico. My dad's in They take off, and but they'll let us know, they no se desaparecen nada más por así, but we kind of have an idea of when they go. For me, though, where and I know that me and Rigo were talking about it earlier, is recently the whole topic of mortality has been just it's been all over my mind. Thinking about what if something happens to me. um you know what if something happens to my parents. Ando medio melancólico, like I'm just thinking about that stuff. I had a friend whose husband just died, and it sucks. It sucks, and it's
I'll tell you
it
this,
just
Roy.
puts things into perspective,
Yes,
right?
it's sad, it sucks, it hurts a lot, but it's one of those things that unfortunately,
It's gonna happen.
one, we have to prepare, and two, we have to get used to it.
Hmm.
Mhm.
Because depending on how old your family is, and it sounds funny and it sounds messed up at the same time, but you're gonna see them start falling like flies,
Yeah,
literally.
yeah.
Yeah, we're getting older, and that's what happens,
You
right?
know, hey, did you hear that so and so died? Damn, what happened? Well, they were old already. Wow, okay, and it's people that you're used to seeing your whole life, right? At parties, at get-togethers, at barbecues, at whatever it is. And little by little, people stop having parties, right?
Hmm.
Little by little, people stop having carne asadas because the
Yeah.
one that used to make it is not here anymore, or the one that used to assign, hey, well, you bring this and you bring that, and the life of the party, which in my family was my mom.
Hmm.
You know, now we don't get together.
Hmm.
Pues sí.
And
You
sometimes,
know,
hey, you got to take up that torch, right? Like,
and we try, bro. We try. I try. My sister has tried. Even my other cousins have tried. But it might work once, twice. But it's one of those things that is like sometimes those commercials where you see the whole family having dinner, right, in a big table.
hmm,
Everybody's having fun, and it goes person to person to person, and all of a sudden it gets to that chair, and that one chair is empty.
yeah,
You know,
yeah, it's not the same.
and it's like fuck, dude. Like, and you're right. Somebody does have to pick up the torch, but it's just it. Not only does that torch come with a lot of responsibility, but it also comes with a lot of work. And this is where you get to find out what that person meant to that family,
Right,
You know,
right?
right.
it gets
See,
heavy.
I have
And
a like. I was.
it's
It's.
bro. In my family, it's one of those things that, like, we knew my mom was the center of she was the desmadrosa one, bro. She was the one that, there was music. She was the first one to start dancing. If people started getting hungry, she was the first one to start cooking. She was. I'm happy and I'm glad to say she was that person, right?
Mm,
And now I get to see one in her the day that she was buried, bro, of how many people came. So many, so many, so many people went.
mm,
People that I didn't even know, right? Friends that she's had since before I was born. Family members that I haven't seen in 20, 30 years. You know, my condolences, Chris. Oh, mijo, I'm sorry, mijo. Fuck are you?
Yeah.
Oh,
mm,
yo era amiga de tu mamá. Yo soy la comadre de tu mamá. Yo soy tu tía. Yo soy tu prima. What the fuck? You know.
Yeah.
And again, yeah, it's sad, dude, but it also brings me a lot of pride, because Again, my mom was that person,
Yeah.
you know.
You
Yeah.
said you had somebody, Rigo?
I was gonna say, what I realized, like life is crazy. I have two things real quick. Like, life is crazy, right? How you become, or you like the circle of life, right? Like we used to
Yeah.
do Christmas at my grandma's, and like
Hmm.
it was like a multi-family thing. There was like all her kids would show up, right? And there'd be like 8 families there. The Christmas tree would be filled with presents. Like, I mean, it'd be like the Christmas tree would be in the corner, and the presents would line up all the way to the couches. Like we had no room to sit, right?
Yeah,
And then
ridiculous.
slowly,
Yeah.
right, and then slowly it became like where, like, once they passed, it was like, shoot, like where do we have Christmas, right? And
Where
then
do
for
we
a good
go?
while, like we was like, well, we'll do it at our house, and then like it's at our house, but it's like a smaller group, right? And it's just crazy how you see that happen. But like my idea is like someone had to take up the torch of like being grandma, but sometimes it's not even like for the rest of the families, right? Like those original groups. It's like for your own family now. Like for me. Like sometimes like even Thanksgiving's getting to the point where we used to always go to my mom's, but now that we work, our schedules don't always work. So now it's like, hey, should we start just doing our own turkey here at home? And then create what I grew up with as a kid, but for my own kids, like my own family, right? Um, and then I was gonna say, have you guys ever seen the movie Big Fish? It's a great movie where the dad like exaggerates all of his stories. It's pretty
I'm
much
not. I'm
like
not
a.
good with names, but let me see.
I remember seeing it. Didn't they have it on TV for a little bit, or didn't they
I
have a
think so.
show?
So it's pretty much like to me like the Notebook, but like the more like
Oh, it's like an old
cartoonish.
school movie. Yeah.
It's good. Like the dad tells all these crazy stories about all these people he met, how he fell in love with his love, and then at the end, he ends up passing. And then it just reminded me of when you talked about the funeral, how all these stories the dad, like the son, was like, "Dad, can you just stop with the stories?" And then the dad says, like, basically, like, "Hey, do you want to go through life like just thinking like you lived a boring life, or that like life was fun?" And the kid's like, "Yeah, but I mean, you don't have to lie." But it wasn't a lie. They were exaggerations of the truth.
Exaggerated.
And at the end, when the funeral happens, all these people that were in the story that you thought were like made up, they were there, but like in smaller, more realistic versions of them, right? Like they had this
Hmm.
tall guy that was like supposed to be like 9 foot. He was really like 7 foot, but they were
Yeah.
there. And so it left it going where like, man, his stories were true, but just exaggerated.
Like I thought my dad was bullshitting, but damn, this whole time was he
Right.
was yeah he was just being him.
Right. He was
He
telling the
was
truth,
being him
just an
and
exaggeration of it,
hurting his
right?
way. Yeah.
And in a way, it wouldn't even be exaggeration. It would be almost the way you
Well,
remember
the
things as a
movie, the
kid. You
movie
know what I
itself
mean?
it portrays it as
Yeah.
exaggeration.
Well, no,
Right.
no, no. But here's the thing. Here's the thing. Like, sometimes like when you're a kid and you see something that's amazing that sticks in your mind, man, I saw this dog. It was
Yeah,
this
it's
hard,
big. Yeah.
right? It's not an exaggeration. That's just the way you perceived it. That's the way you
Right.
remember it. And the
Right.
excitement of
Perception.
seeing something that's so big, man, it was this big, like up to my shoulder,
Right.
right?
Right.
And so when
Right.
you share that same story at the same energy when you're older, yeah, it's going to sound like an exaggeration, but you're sharing it with the same energy and enthusiasm that you did when you were younger. And
Right.
so what makes it sound like an exaggeration isn't necessarily that he's embellishing so much, but maybe he's sharing the nostalgic memories of
Right.
what he knew and how excited he was with these people and these situations and everything that's going on. And I'm gonna have to check that movie out because I like watching movies.
It's a
And
Bro,
great
one
movie.
one one thing that and Freud can vouch for me on this one is that so the way that Freud and our relationship started is I used to be his manager back in the days for AT&T. So I remember I would tell him and the rest of the team, at times I would bring up, stuff that I would see in movies, other managers, right? You end up twisting it your way, making it seem the way you talk and the way you are and everything. And I would always tell this guy, especially this guy, he was one of the only ones that stuck around, literally stuck around from the crew that I call my crew, right? I would always tell them, you guys have to create your stories, right? Life is all about stories, right? Everybody has their own little stories. Um, I was talking to one of our listeners, which is pretty much my other best friend, Joey. I go, bro, and lately I've been listening to like early 2000s hip hop. And sometimes like Ashanti pops up or Ja Rule pops up, and I'm like, fuck. It takes me back to a certain moment in
Mm-hmm.
time of what I was doing when I heard that song, right? Or that it cemented a moment in time where like, damn, I really had fun. I really had fun when I was 18, 19, 20 years old, you know? I really did do this, even though my dad was very strict, even though my mom was strict. In my own way, I had little fun. And those are little stories that I can tell my kids. Now it's up to me, however I want to exaggerate, right? Or however I want to elaborate that story in order for it to be interesting,
Right. Or up to
right?
date, right? Up to these days, right?
Make it, yeah,
Relevant.
Right.
relevant to how they see it, you know. But I'm always, if I ever have my son on here, you can ask him too. I'm always telling my kids stories about when I was a kid. Oh, when I was a kid, I used to do this. Or when I was a kid, I used to do that. Or, yeah, your dad's a little gordito now, but back in the day, man, I used to have, how do you think I got your mom? And how do you think this, and this, and blah, blah, blah,
Right. Right. Right.
And it's one of those things that I know that it probably doesn't seem at times that it sinks in with them. But if I know that the stories my dad told me and the amount of stories that my mom told me sunk with me, and they became relevant. Obviously, when they passed away, and people would come, oh, me and your dad, we used to do this. And I'm like, oh shit, my dad did tell me about that.
Right.
You
Right.
know, my mom did tell me that she went blah blah blah. So one thing that I know about my mom is that I never saw my mom drive a car the time that I was alive.
Mm,
Rumor is that she used to drive all the time back in the 70s to Tijuana
mm,
every single weekend. My sister tells me that they're always going to Tijuana, coming back with groceries, or they used to go buy clothes over there and always coming back with candy and stuff like that from Tijuana. And they she used to drive those big old boats from the 70s. And again, stories that I've heard all my life, but I never saw them saying, this is things that, and, I called it bullshit all my life. But when she passed away, oh yeah, I used to go with your mom to Tijuana all the time. Passport and this. Una vez pasamos a una niña, and, all kinds of stuff.
So a
You
full
know.
on big fish situation where all the other stories
Sí,
that she
güey,
told
and they all
you
came to
are coming
life.
true.
right.
Yeah, they
Right.
all
Right.
came. They all came true. They all. I'm like, oh shit! I remember my mom telling me that. Well, I remember my tia telling me that my mom used to do all this kind of cool stuff.
Yeah.
And
Like for me,
me
it's funny.
thinking. Go ahead.
I have an uncle who's like he's the definition of this movie. He's literally the main character or the dad of this movie. His
Exagerado.
stories his stories are like out of this world. But they've all come to fruition. Like we've met the friends who that was like the case, right? So like he lives in a really nice home in San Dimas, and he always tells us about this time. He's a bow. He loves to hunt, but he loves bow, like archery. And so he talks about one time where he has this big oak tree. It's about 150 maybe yards away from the back of his house, out like this like creek area, Walnut Creek. And he talks about how he shot an arrow. His friends dared him to shoot an arrow, and then dared him to shoot that arrow. And you think like it's a Robin Hood type thing, like no, that's impossible, right? Like yeah, right. What like there's no way. He's like, I shot the arrow. They paid me, bet me $100. I couldn't hit that arrow, and I hit the arrow. And you think to yourself like, yeah,
Yeah.
great story, uncle. Like, okay, sure, right? Well, one day we're back there because we're hiking that little like it's a hiking trail, We're out there, and then we go up to the tree, and guess what we find? Two
Chill.
arrows
Yeah.
embedded in the tree. And we're like, that
Oh
son of a
shit.
bee was not lying. And then he has another story where he's like, he was dealing with some clients who were like very undecisive, and he was happened to had just come back from a hunt. He had one of his like long revolvers and his that he was cleaning, and he talks about a story where he like puts the gun on the table and he tells the client like, "Are you gonna make a decision or are you just gonna waste our time?"
Oh
And then
shit.
like we're thinking like, yeah, right, that story ain't true. Then we meet the guy that he did it, and the guy like without him bringing it up goes, "You remember that time you pulled your gun out because you were cleaning it?" So there's the story behind it, right? It wasn't just like I pulled my gun out, boom. It was
Yeah,
there
he
was
was
some it
cleaning
was
it.
a joke, right? But he did it like he did do it to someone, and they were
Yeah.
like, "You remember that time you pulled your revolver out and just laid it on the table?" And you're like, "What are you gonna do? You gonna close the deal or not?" And it's like, man, you weren't
Oh
lying. Like
shit.
you big fished us, but like it was real. Like they're real stories. So it's great. It's
That,
it's funny. That
and
that
those
movie's
are the
great.
things that I think that us as dads we need to start doing more, right? Having
Right.
that communication with our kids. However, BS the story is, like we need to have those stories for our kids because it's going to continue, right?
Right.
One day you're going to share those stories with your kid. Oh, I used to have a tío that did this, and this, and if it's cool enough story, your kid's going to remember it, and he's going to be like, oh, well, I used to have a great uncle. My dad says that blah blah blah. This happened, and he pulled out a gun over a guy that didn't want to sell him. He didn't want to buy the house, and he told him, "You're going to buy the house or not?"
Right.
Right? So
Right.
it creates stories, and who knows how far they go, bro. I got
Right.
stories for days that I've heard from my parents and from them, and stuff that now is popping up out of wherever I go. Hey, I used to be your mom's friend. I used to be your dad's friend. How is he? Or they find out that they passed away. Oh no, I'm sorry. Oh yeah, me and your dad used to go here. We used to play soccer. My dad plays soccer. What the fuck?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, me and your dad used to play soccer all the time, and your dad used to do this, your dad used to do that. What the hell? So things that happened in their time that obviously becoming parents, it stopped, right? One
Yeah.
way or another, whatever they did or whatever they were doing stopped because they became parents.
Right.
And it's one thing that I hope my kids continue, with whatever stories, and they're gonna have their stories for their kids, and so on and so forth, right? So
Yeah.
life is about stories. It depends on how big you want to tell that story, so that it can live on, right? Our lives are stories.
Right.
Uh, People one day are gonna talk about Rigo. Oh, Rigo used to be a twin, or
Right.
he is a twin, and sometimes they used to date the same girl, and blah blah blah, and
Right.
so on and so forth.
Yeah, I hope to I was say I hope to like these type of conversations help to build like the like I want to be that deal. I want to be that uncle, right? Like I want those stories to be like, man, the guy told all these stories and then they meet the people in the life where it's like they did do that. Like it did
Yeah,
happen or
Yep.
like have our kids and our like my brother's kids are my godchildren. So it's like
yeah.
to have them be able to be like that was my cool uncle. That's the uncle that I like
Like
loved hanging out
Nino,
with.
my dad says that he used to do this, and this. Oh yeah, he did it all the time.
Right,
Yeah.
right, exactly. Right.
Oh, the whole time I thought Daddy was lying.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it helps, man. Telling stories to these kids, entertaining them. We maybe our parents thought that we weren't listening, or our tios thought that we weren't listening. But when you're a kid, you listen to everything,
Oh yeah.
right? And little by little, you start remembering. Especially when you're older, you're like, damn. I remember I used to do this, or like
Yep.
you pass by a place. I remember we used to go there all the time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And what
Yeah,
happens too, Chris and Rigo, is sometimes all the stories that you kind of created growing up, or through your life experiences, will sometimes come across as a great icebreaker to open into a deeper conversation with somebody that's going through something. You know, no, Dad, you don't understand. Like this is the way things are now, and blah blah blah. Well, it wasn't that different when I did it. You didn't do it. I did it. What do you mean you did it? Yeah. I was this, I was that, and I did this, and I was like, what?